My family banned me from their trip but still sent me a $4,800 bill. I took my own vacation, showed up uninvited and made them regret leaving me behind. I am Amanda Cooper, 32 years old. Growing up as the middle child in the Cooper family was never easy. Sandwiched between my older brother Justin, now 35, and my younger sister Stephanie, 28, I often felt invisible. It was not just a feeling, though. There was always tangible evidence that my parents John and Diane Cooper, 62 and 58, respectively, saw me differently than my siblings. Justin was the golden child, the firstborn son, who excelled at sports and went on to become a successful financial advisor. Stephanie was the baby of the family, artistic and charming, who could wrap our parents around her finger with a single smile. And then there was me, Amanda, the middle child, who was expected to be independent, resilient, and understanding when there was only enough attention for the other two. Family vacations were always particularly telling. When I was 12, my parents took Justin to baseball camp in Florida, and Stephanie tagged along for the beach. I stayed with my aunt for those 2 weeks. When I was 16, the family took a road trip to the Grand Canyon, but I had to sit in the cramped back seat with all the luggage while my siblings spread out comfortably. By 18, I stopped expecting equal treatment and started making my own plans. Amanda has always been so self-sufficient, my mother would say proudly to her friends, as if my independence was a personality trait rather than a survival mechanism I had developed from years of being overlooked. After college, I moved to Chicago and built my own life, landing a position at a digital marketing agency. I climbed the corporate ladder steadily, and though I lived only 40 minutes from my parents, our interactions became limited to major holidays and occasional Sunday dinners, where the conversation inevitably centered around Justin's career achievements or Stephanie's dating life. 2 months ago, during one of those Sunday dinners, my father mentioned a family trip to Hawaii that he had been planning. 2 weeks in Maui at a beautiful beachfront villa, he announced proudly. We have been saving for years. My mother clapped her hands together. It will be the perfect family getaway. For the first time in years, I felt included in the family circle. When my father looked at me and said, "We want everyone there," I allowed myself to believe that everyone included me. In the weeks that followed, I became an active participant in the planning. I researched restaurants in Maui and sent links to my parents. I found information about the best snorkeling spots and created a shared document with potential activities. My mother thanked me for my input and my father seemed impressed by my organizational skills. "This might be the best trip we have ever taken," he said during a phone call. And I silently agreed, hoping this vacation might bridge the gap that had formed between us over the years. I submitted my vacation request at work, explaining to my boss that I needed 2 full weeks for a meaningful family reunion. I spent weekends shopping for new swimsuits, sundresses, and hiking sandals. I downloaded Hawaiian language apps and practiced basic phrases, imagining impressing my family with my cultural preparation. The night before we were supposed to leave, I packed my suitcase meticulously. I included small gifts for each family member: a Hawaiian shirt for my dad, a pearl bracelet for my mom, a waterproof phone case for Justin, and a journal with pressed flowers for Stephanie. I applied sunscreen that morning out of pure excitement, imagining the Hawaiian sun on my skin. I had never felt more ready for anything in my life. This trip represented more than just a vacation. It was a chance to reconnect with my family, to finally feel like I belonged among them. After years of feeling like an outsider, I thought Hawaii might be where the Cooper family finally became whole. When I pulled into the driveway that morning, I noticed the garage door was open. I could see suitcases being loaded into my parents' SUV. I parked my car, grabbed my carefully packed bag, and approached the front door with a heart full of anticipation. The flight was scheduled for 6 that evening, and we had agreed to meet at the house by noon to drive to the airport together. I rang the doorbell, eager to begin what I thought would be 2 weeks of family bonding and tropical memories. I had no idea that the moment my mother opened that door, everything would change. My mother opened the door wearing her travel outfit, a flowing linen blouse, and matching pants, perfect for a long flight. Her face registered surprise when she saw me standing there with my suitcase as if I was an unexpected delivery rather than her daughter. "Amanda," she said, her voice tight. What are you doing here? I laughed, thinking she was joking. I am here for the airport carpool, Mom, just like we planned. She glanced over her shoulder into the house before stepping onto the porch and partially closing the door behind her. That was when she delivered the words that would echo in my mind for weeks to come. Amanda, you were never actually on the guest list. We figured you would be fine alone. I stood there, sunscreen already applied, bag packed, completely stunned. What are you talking about? We have been planning this for months. I took time off work. My mother had the decency to look uncomfortable, but her resolve never wavered. There was a misunderstanding. The villa only has 3 bedrooms, and we need one for your father and me, one for Justin, and one for Stephanie and her new boyfriend. New boyfriend? I repeated dumbly. This was the first I had heard about Stephanie bringing someone. Yes, she has been dating Greg for 2 months now. Your father and I thought it would be nice for them to have this time together. The front door opened wider and my father appeared. He was wearing his vacation hat, the straw fedora he saved for special occasions. His expression was pained when he saw me, but he made no move to contradict my mother. Amanda, he said, as if my name was a complete sentence. Dad, I replied, waiting for him to fix this, to say there had been a mistake, that of course I was coming on the family vacation. But he just stood there silently, his hand on my mother's shoulder. You could have told me, I said, fighting to keep my voice steady. You could have told me weeks ago instead of letting me take time off and pack my bags. We did not want to hurt your feelings, my mother explained. We know how sensitive you can be. Before I could respond to this particular piece of gaslighting, Justin appeared in the doorway, dragging his expensive luggage behind him. He at least had the grace to look embarrassed when he saw me. Hey, sis, he said awkwardly. What is up? Apparently, I am not going to Hawaii, I replied. His eyes darted to our parents, then back to me. Oh, that is too bad. Stephanie was the last to appear, holding hands with a tall man I assumed was Greg. Her face fell when she saw me standing there with my suitcase. Amanda, she said, her voice small. I thought Mom was going to call you. Well, she did not, I replied. Instead, I drove all the way here to be told in person that I am not welcome on the family vacation. No one spoke. We all stood there in this terrible tableau, me on one side with my pathetic suitcase and sunscreen-slathered skin, and the rest of my family on the other united in their exclusion of me. I could have caused a scene. I could have shouted or cried or demanded answers. But years of being the overlooked middle child had taught me to swallow my pain with dignity. So I smiled, nodded, and picked up my bag. Have a great trip, I said, turning back toward my car. Amanda, wait. Stephanie called after me, but I kept walking. I drove home in a daze, my mind replaying years of similar exclusions. The time my high school graduation dinner was cut short because Justin had a baseball game. The Christmas my gift was clearly an afterthought while my siblings received carefully selected presents. The family photo sessions where I was positioned in the back or asked to take the picture instead. Back at my apartment, I scrolled through social media, masochistically seeking updates. Sure enough, by evening, Stephanie had posted a selfie of the family at the airport gate. Hawaii bound with my favorite people, read the caption. I was not tagged, mentioned, or missed. I ordered takeout, unable to muster the energy to cook, and tried to figure out what to do with 2 weeks of unexpected vacation time. Maybe I could book a solo trip somewhere. Maybe I could pick up extra projects at work. Maybe I could just sit in my apartment and feel sorry for myself. Around 9 that night, my phone pinged with a notification. It was a payment request from my father via a money transfer app. $48, your share of flights and villa. I stared at the screen in disbelief. Not only had they excluded me from the trip, but they were also expecting me to help pay for it. I called my father immediately. Dad, what is this payment request for your portion of the trip? He said, as if it was perfectly reasonable. The trip I am not on. Well, we booked everything for 5 people originally and the cancellation fees would have been substantial. Plus, we did include you in all the planning because I thought I was going. I was nearly shouting now. Amanda, calm down. We just figured since you make good money at your job, you would not mind contributing. Family helps family. I ended the call before I could say something I might regret. I sat on my couch still in the sundress I had chosen for travel and felt the full weight of the realization I was not just overlooked in my family. I was actively excluded while still being expected to contribute. The ultimate irony was that they had never actually cancelled my portion. They had just decided I would not use it. After ending the call with my father, I collapsed onto my couch and finally allowed the tears to come. Not quiet, dignified tears, but ugly racking sobs that left me gasping for breath. My chest physically hurt from the betrayal. How could they do this to me? Was I really so unimportant to my own family? When the initial wave of emotion subsided, I picked up my phone and called the one person I knew would understand, my best friend, Jessica. They did what? She practically screamed after I explained the situation and then had the audacity to ask you for money. Who does that? My family, apparently, I said, feeling exhausted. This is beyond the usual Cooper family nonsense, Amanda. This is cruel. She was right. This went beyond the typical overlooking of the middle child. This was calculated exclusion followed by financial exploitation. I have 2 weeks of vacation time and nowhere to go, I said miserably. You could come stay with me, Jessica offered. She lived in a small apartment in the city with her 2 cats. Thanks, but I think I need some time alone to process this. What are you going to do about the money request? That was the question that kept circling in my mind. My first instinct was to call my parents back and tell them exactly what I thought about their request. I wanted to list every instance where they had made me feel less than every time they had chosen my siblings over me. Every moment I had swallowed my hurt to keep the peace. But then a different idea began to form. What if instead of confronting them directly, I showed them exactly what they were missing by excluding me? I think I am going to pay them, I said slowly. Amanda, no, Jessica protested. They do not deserve a penny from you. Not the full amount, I clarified. I am going to send them $1 with a note. You will have a surprise. Jessica was quiet for a moment before she started laughing. What does that even mean? I do not know yet, I admitted, but it will drive them crazy wondering. After we hung up, I sent the $1 payment with the cryptic note attached. Almost immediately, my phone lit up with a text from my mother. What is that supposed to mean, Amanda? I did not respond. Let them wonder. I spent the rest of the evening in a strange focused state. The hurt was still there, but it was now accompanied by a sense of purpose. I opened my laptop and began researching flights to Hawaii. The prices for last-minute tickets were steep, but not impossible. I had been saving for a home down payment, and while this would set me back a few months, I decided my self-respect was worth the cost. I found a flight leaving the next evening with one stop in Los Angeles. It would get me to Maui a day after my family arrived. Next, I needed to figure out exactly where they were staying. My father had mentioned a beachfront villa, but Maui had dozens of those. I scrolled back through our family group chat looking for clues. There it was in a message from 3 weeks ago. Sunset Breeze Villa in Wailea confirmed for 5 guests. I looked up the property online. It was indeed stunning. A 3-bedroom villa with an infinity pool overlooking the ocean. The website listed similar properties nearby and one in particular caught my eye. A smaller but equally luxurious villa just down the beach. It was available for the same dates though at a premium price due to the last-minute booking. I paused before entering my credit card information. Was I really going to spend thousands of dollars just to prove a point to my family? Then I remembered the look on my mother's face when she told me I was never on the guest list as if I was an inconvenience rather than her daughter. I remembered my father's silence, his unwillingness to stand up for me. I remembered the payment request so casual in its cruelty. Yes, I was going to do this, not just to prove a point to them, but to prove something to myself that I deserved better treatment than what I had been accepting all these years. I booked the villa and the flight, then called my boss to explain that I would indeed be taking my planned vacation after all. She was understanding, even encouraging when I gave her a censored version of the situation. "Sometimes you need to stand up for yourself, Amanda," she said. "The team will manage without you." With the logistics handled, I turned my attention to the emotional preparation. I knew confronting my family would be difficult. I would need to stay calm and dignified to express my hurt without letting it consume me. I practiced what I would say, rehearsing in front of my bathroom mirror until the words felt natural. Jessica came over the next morning to help me repack and drive me to the airport. "Are you sure about this?" she asked as we pulled into the departure lane. "I have never been more sure of anything," I replied. "They need to understand that they cannot treat me this way anymore." She gave me a fierce hug before I got out of the car. "Make them regret ever leaving you behind." With my suitcase repacked and my resolve strengthened, I entered the airport with a sense of purpose that overpowered my nervousness. This time, I had packed more deliberately comfortable clothes for the long flight. My best swimsuits and sundresses for when I would confront my family, and even a new sun hat I had splurged on during a quick pre-flight shopping trip with Jessica. "If you are going to show up and show out, you need to look the part," she had insisted as she helped me select the wide-brimmed straw hat with a blue ribbon that matched my eyes. The check-in process went smoothly, and soon I was settled at my gate, waiting to board the first leg of my journey to Hawaii. My phone pinged with a notification from the family group chat. Stephanie had posted more photos, the family enjoying mimosas at a beachfront restaurant. Everyone smiling as if nothing was wrong, as if someone was not missing. I put my phone away and tried to focus on a book, but my mind kept wandering to what awaited me in Hawaii. Would they be angry, embarrassed? Would they try to justify their actions? I had never stood up to my family in such a dramatic way before, and while part of me worried about the fallout, a stronger part felt exhilarated by the prospect of finally demanding the respect I deserved. When it was time to board, I found myself seated next to an elderly woman named Eleanor who was traveling to Hawaii to visit her son. "He moved there 5 years ago and opened a resort," she explained proudly. "I visit twice a year. There is nothing like family, is there?" I smiled politely, not wanting to dive into my complicated family dynamics with a stranger. But as the flight progressed and Eleanor shared more about her life, I found myself opening up about my situation. "My goodness," she said when I finished explaining, her eyes wide behind her glasses, "and you are flying all the way there to confront them." "I am," I confirmed. She patted my hand. "Good for you, dear. Sometimes family needs a wake-up call. Too often we accept poor treatment from relatives that we would never tolerate from friends." Her validation was unexpectedly comforting. As our conversation continued, I learned that her son Daniel owned a boutique resort not far from where my family was staying. "You must come visit," Eleanor insisted, writing down the name and address of the resort. "I will tell Daniel all about you. He always appreciates people with spirit." The flight landed in Los Angeles, where I had a 2-hour layover before the final leg to Maui. While waiting at my gate, I received a text from my father. "What do you mean by surprise? We expect the full payment, Amanda." I did not respond. Let them stew in their curiosity. The flight from Los Angeles to Maui was longer, and I managed to get some sleep knowing I would need my energy for what lay ahead. When I finally stepped off the plane in Kahului Airport, the warm, fragrant air of Hawaii enveloped me. Despite the circumstances, I could not help but feel a thrill of excitement. I was in Hawaii, and for once, I was writing my own story rather than accepting the role my family had assigned me. I collected my luggage and found the rental car I had reserved. With the help of GPS, I made my way toward Wailea, where both my family's villa and my own accommodations were located. The drive was stunning, with the Pacific Ocean glittering on one side and lush green mountains on the other. When I arrived at my villa, I was greeted by a friendly staff member named Michael, who helped with my bags. "Cooper," he repeated when I gave my name. "We have another Cooper family staying just down the beach." "Any relation?" "Yes," I said with a smile that did not reach my eyes. "They are my family." "Oh, wonderful. They arrived yesterday." Shall I let them know you are here? No, thank you. I would like to surprise them. Michael looked curious but did not press the issue. He showed me around the villa, which was smaller than my family's, but beautifully appointed with a private patio that had an unobstructed view of the ocean. Is there anything else you need, Miss Cooper? He asked before leaving. Actually, yes. Could you tell me which beach the guests from the Sunset Breeze Villa usually visit? My family mentioned a particular spot, but I forgot the name. That would be Wailea Beach. Most of our guests head there in the morning. It gets quite crowded by midday. After he left, I unpacked my things and stepped onto the patio. The sun was beginning to set, painting the sky in spectacular shades of orange and pink. In the distance, I could see several beachfront villas, and I wondered if one of them housed my family. Were they enjoying the same sunset? Were they feeling even a twinge of guilt about excluding me? My phone buzzed with another text, this time from Stephanie. Amanda, what is going on? Dad is freaking out about your payment message. I typed out a response. Enjoy Hawaii. Say aloha to everyone for me. Then I added a smiley face emoji, knowing it would only increase their confusion. That evening, I walked along the beach, mentally preparing for the next day. The waves lapped gently at the shore and palm trees swayed in the breeze. I met a local couple, Kai and Leilani, who were playing ukulele near a small fire pit. When I mentioned I was here alone, they invited me to join them. Family drama, I explained vaguely when they asked why I was traveling solo. Ah, we understand, Kai said with a knowing nod. But you know what they say in Hawaii. Ohana means family and family means nobody gets left behind. The irony was not lost on me. Unless you are the middle child apparently, I said with a wry smile. We chatted for a while longer and before we parted ways, Leilani offered some advice. If you are going to confront your family, do it with aloha in your heart. Not just love, but respect and compassion. That way, no matter how they respond, you will have peace. I thanked them for their kindness and headed back to my villa. Tomorrow would be the day of reckoning, and I needed to be well rested and centered for what promised to be an emotional confrontation. As I lay in bed that night, listening to the sound of the ocean through the open windows, I felt a strange calm settle over me. For the first time in my life, I was standing up for myself against my family. Whatever happened tomorrow, I would no longer be the overlooked middle child who accepted scraps of attention. I would be Amanda Cooper, a woman who knew her worth and demanded the respect she deserved. I woke up early the next morning, my heart racing before my eyes even opened. Today was the day I would confront my family. I took my time getting ready, selecting a blue sundress that Jessica always said brought out the color in my eyes, and wearing the new sun hat we had purchased together. I wanted to look my best, not out of vanity, but because it would help me feel confident and composed. After a light breakfast on my patio, I gathered my beach bag, including a small gift for each family member that I had impulsively purchased at the airport. They did not deserve gifts, of course, but I wanted to make a point about generosity and thoughtfulness. According to Michael, Wailea Beach would be where my family would likely spend their morning. I decided to arrive around 10 o'clock, giving them time to settle into their beach day before I made my appearance. I rehearsed what I would say one last time, then headed out. Wailea Beach was already bustling when I arrived. Families spread out on colorful towels. Children built sand castles at the water's edge. And paddleboarders glided across the crystal clear water. I scanned the crowd looking for my family among the sea of sunbathers. And then I saw them. They had claimed a prime spot near the center of the beach. My father was reading a book under a large umbrella. My mother was applying sunscreen to her arms. Justin was throwing a frisbee with who I assumed was Greg, and Stephanie was arranging snacks on a small portable table. They looked perfectly content, a complete family unit, enjoying their Hawaiian vacation without me. For a moment, I considered turning around and leaving. What was I hoping to accomplish here? Would confronting them really change anything? But then I remembered the casual cruelty of my mother's words at the door, my father's complicit silence, and the audacious payment request. I deserved better, and they needed to know that. I took a deep breath and walked toward them, my heart pounding so hard I could feel it in my throat. Stephanie saw me first. She was reaching for a water bottle when she froze, her mouth dropping open in shock. Her reaction caught my mother's attention, who followed her gaze and actually dropped the sunscreen bottle she was holding when she saw me approaching. "Amanda," she gasped loud enough to alert my father, who lowered his book in confusion. By now, I was close enough for them all to see me clearly. Justin and Greg stopped their frisbee game and stared. The collective shock on their faces would have been comical under different circumstances. "Aloha, family," I said, proud that my voice did not betray the emotional turmoil inside me. "Surprise! What are you doing here?" my father managed to ask, sitting up straighter in his beach chair. "I decided to join the family vacation after all," I replied, setting down my beach bag. Though I booked my own accommodations since I was informed the villa had no room for me. My mother stood up, smoothing her cover up as if preparing for battle. "Amanda, this is inappropriate. You cannot just show up like this." "Like what, Mom?" "Like a member of the family wanting to be included in a family vacation." "How inappropriate of me." People on neighboring beach setups were beginning to notice the tension. A few curious glances were cast our way. "Lower your voice," my mother hissed. "People are staring." "I am not raising my voice," I said calmly. "But I am going to say what needs to be said." I turned to address all of them. For years, I have accepted being the afterthought in this family. I have smiled and nodded when you excluded me, forgotten me, or treated me as less important than Justin or Stephanie. I told myself that family is family, and that your love was just expressed differently toward me. My father shifted uncomfortably in his seat. "Amanda, that is not fair." "What is not fair?" "Dad is telling me I am part of a family vacation, letting me take time off work and pack my bags, and then turning me away at the door. What is not fair is then having the audacity to ask me to pay for a trip I was not allowed to join." Justin, who had remained silent until now, stepped forward. "Come on, sis. You are making a scene." "I am not making a scene, Justin. I am finally standing up for myself. And if that makes you uncomfortable, perhaps you should ask yourself why." Stephanie, to her credit, looked genuinely remorseful. "Amanda, I am so sorry. I thought they had talked to you weeks ago." "Well, they did not," I replied. "And no one, including you, bothered to check with me directly." Greg, clearly uncomfortable being caught in the middle of family drama, mumbled something about giving us privacy and walked toward the water. "We did not think you would care that much," my mother said, her voice softer now, but still defensive. "You were always so independent, Amanda. We thought you would be happy having time to yourself." "That is the excuse you have always used, Mom. Amanda is so independent. She does not need us." "Did it ever occur to you that I became independent because I had to? Because I learned early on that I could not count on my family to include me or prioritize me." A woman on a nearby beach towel was now openly watching us, nodding slightly, as if she understood exactly what I was saying. "I have spent my entire life accepting the scraps of attention and affection that were left over after you gave the best parts to Justin and Stephanie. I convinced myself that was normal, that maybe I was asking for too much. But this excluding me from a family vacation and then asking me to help pay for it, that crossed a line I cannot ignore." My father stood up now, his face flushed with a mixture of embarrassment and anger. "What exactly did you expect to accomplish by coming here, Amanda? To ruin our vacation, to make us feel guilty?" "I came here to show you that I deserve respect," I replied, my voice steady, despite the emotion building in my throat, "that I am not an afterthought or an inconvenience, but a person with feelings who deserves to be treated with consideration, especially by her family." Several beachgoers were now watching our confrontation. And some pretending to read books or check their phones while obviously listening. One older woman caught my eye and gave me an encouraging nod. "You could have called my mother," said weakly. "Like you could have called to tell me I was not welcome on this trip," I countered. "I learned my communication skills from you after all." As we stood facing each other on the beach, the tension thick enough to cut with a knife, I realized it was time to shift the dynamic. This confrontation was necessary, but it was not why I had come all this way. I had not spent thousands of dollars just to yell at my family on a Hawaiian beach. I did not come here just to confront you, I said, reaching into my beach bag. I brought each of you something. They exchanged confused glances as I pulled out the small gifts I had purchased. A handcrafted wooden turtle for my father, a pair of pearl earrings for my mother, a Hawaiian print wallet for Justin, and a delicate shell necklace for Stephanie. Amanda, my mother began, her voice faltering as she held the earrings. I do not understand. I brought these because despite everything, you are still my family. And when I was packing for what I thought would be our family vacation, I had included gifts for each of you, different ones than these, but the sentiment was the same. Because that is what family does. They think of each other. My father looked down at the wooden turtle in his hand, turning it over slowly. We never meant to hurt you, Amanda. But you did hurt me, Dad. And it is not the first time. The difference is this time I am not going to pretend it did not happen. Stephanie stepped forward, tears in her eyes. I am so sorry, Amanda. I should have checked with you directly. Yes, you should have, I agreed. But I appreciate your apology. Justin cleared his throat. So what now? Are you joining us at the villa? There is the pull-out couch in the living room. I could not help but laugh. After all this, your solution is to offer me a pull-out couch. No, Justin. I have my own accommodations. Where are you staying? My mother asked. I found a lovely villa just down the beach, I replied. But I am not alone. As if on cue, I saw Eleanor and her son Daniel walking toward us along the beach. I had contacted them that morning, and Eleanor had insisted on accompanying Daniel to meet my family. There she is, Eleanor called out, waving enthusiastically. Our wonderful new friend. My family turned to look at the approaching pair with confusion. Everyone, this is Eleanor, whom I met on my flight, and her son, Daniel, I explained as they reached us. Daniel owns the Plumeria Bay Resort. My father's eyebrows shot up in recognition. The Plumeria Bay Resort was one of the most exclusive properties on the island, known for its celebrity guests and impeccable service. Pleased to meet you all, Daniel said, extending his hand to my father. Your daughter made quite an impression on my mother during their flight. When she told me Amanda's story, I insisted she stay at our best beachfront bungalow as our guest. As your guest, my mother repeated, clearly struggling to process this information. Completely complimentary, Daniel confirmed with a smile. We at Plumeria Bay believe in the spirit of aloha, which means no one gets left behind. The pointed comment was not lost on my family, who shifted uncomfortably. That is very generous of you, my father said stiffly. Not at all, Eleanor chimed in. Amanda is a delight. In fact, we are having a special sunset cruise this evening for our VIP guests, and she will be joining us. Stephanie was looking at me with new eyes, a mixture of remorse, and something else. Admiration, perhaps. That sounds amazing, Amanda. It does. I agreed. The bungalow is pretty spectacular, too. Private pool, butler service, the works. My mother's mouth had formed a tight line. I knew her well enough to recognize that she was calculating how this development affected the family dynamic. Her middle daughter, the one she had so casually excluded, was now being treated like royalty by the owner of the most prestigious resort on the island. Perhaps you would all like to join us for dinner tomorrow night at the resort restaurant, Daniel offered smoothly, as Amanda's guests, of course. Before my parents could respond, Stephanie said, we would love to. Justin nodded, looking somewhat bewildered by the turn of events. Amanda, my mother said, her voice softer. Now, could we speak privately for a moment? I nodded and followed her a short distance away from the group. When we were out of earshot, she turned to me. I owe you an apology, she said, the words clearly difficult for her. We should have handled this differently. Yes, you should have. I agreed, not making it easier for her. It was never about not wanting you there, she continued. The villa was expensive. And with Stephanie wanting to bring Greg, we had to make choices. The choice to exclude your daughter without even telling her. She had the grace to look ashamed. I know it sounds terrible when you put it that way. Because it is terrible, Mom. How would you feel if Grandma had done that to you? She was quiet for a moment. I would have been heartbroken. Exactly. She reached for my hand. Can you forgive us? Can we start over? Maybe you could move your things to the villa. We will figure out the sleeping arrangements. I gently withdrew my hand. I appreciate the offer, Mom, but I am actually quite happy at Plumeria Bay. This vacation has taken an unexpected turn, but I am going to embrace it. So, you will not be spending time with us? She asked, looking genuinely disappointed. I will join you for activities here and there, I said, including dinner tomorrow. But I need some space, too. This is not something I can just sweep under the rug. When we rejoined the group, Stephanie immediately pulled me aside. I am so sorry, Amanda, she said, her eyes brimming with tears. I had no idea they had not told you. When Mom said you could not come because of work, I believed her. Unlike with my mother, I could feel Stephanie's genuine remorse. It is not entirely your fault, I conceded. Can I come see your fancy bungalow sometime? She asked hesitantly. Maybe we could have sister time, just the two of us. I found myself smiling. I would like that. As Eleanor, Daniel, and I prepared to leave, my father approached me. That payment request? He said awkwardly. I have cancelled it. It was wrong of me. Yes, it was. I agreed. Are we okay, Amanda? He asked, looking older and more vulnerable than I could remember seeing him. We will be, I told him, but it will take time. As we walked away, Eleanor squeezed my arm. You handled that beautifully, dear. Thank you for coming, I said, feeling emotionally drained, but somehow lighter, both of you. Happy to help, Daniel said with a smile. Now, let me tell you about the sunset cruise. It is the perfect way to celebrate your independence. I looked back over my shoulder at my family, still standing together on the beach, watching us leave. For the first time in my life, I was not the one being left behind. I was moving forward on my own terms, and it felt incredible. The remainder of my Hawaiian vacation unfolded in ways I never could have anticipated. Instead of being the forgotten middle child trailing behind my family, I found myself embraced by a new circle of friends at Plumeria Bay Resort. Eleanor introduced me to other guests, and Daniel made sure I was included in all the exclusive activities the resort offered. The sunset cruise that first evening was magical. As we sailed along the coast of Maui, watching the sky turn brilliant shades of orange and pink, I felt a sense of peace settle over me. Eleanor sat beside me sharing stories of her own family struggles and how she had learned to set boundaries while maintaining relationships. The thing about family, she said as we watched the sun sink below the horizon, is that we do not get to choose them, but we do get to choose how we allow them to treat us. The next day, Stephanie texted asking if she could visit my bungalow before our family dinner. When she arrived, her eyes widened at the luxurious accommodations. This is incredible, she said, taking in the private pool and ocean view. Way nicer than our villa. We sat on the patio drinking fresh pineapple juice provided by the attentive resort staff. For the first time in years, maybe ever, Stephanie and I had a real conversation. Not about our parents or Justin, but about our lives, our hopes, our struggles. I need to tell you something, she said after a while, looking nervous about why you were excluded from the trip. I braced myself, not sure. I wanted to hear more excuses. Mom and Dad are having financial problems, she confessed. Dad's retirement fund took a huge hit last year, and they had already put down the non-refundable deposit for the villa before they realized they could not really afford this trip. Then why take it at all? I asked. Pride, I think. And they had promised Justin and me for so long. When I mentioned bringing Greg, they realized they definitely could not afford another person, and they decided I would be the one left out. I finished for her. She nodded miserably. They figured you would understand best since you have always been so independent. It was wrong, Amanda. So wrong. I should have offered to pay for Greg myself or not brought him at all. The revelation about my parents' finances put things in a slightly different light, though it did not excuse their behavior. They could have been honest with me rather than excluding me and then asking for money. "Thank you for telling me," I said. "It helps to understand a little better." That evening at dinner, the dynamic between my family and me had shifted noticeably. My parents were subdued, almost deferential. Justin seemed to be seeing me with new eyes, asking about my job and life in Chicago with genuine interest. As we were finishing dessert, my father cleared his throat. "Amanda, your mother and I have been talking. We want to reimburse you for your flight and any other expenses you incurred getting here." "That is not necessary," I replied. "I came here for myself as much as for any of you." Still, my mother insisted, "We want to make things right." "What would make things right," I said carefully, "is a promise that this kind of exclusion will not happen again. I do not need your money. I need your respect." They both nodded solemnly. On the last day of my vacation, I was surprised by a knock on my bungalow door. It was Justin, looking uncharacteristically uncomfortable. "Got a minute?" he asked. I invited him in, curious about what had prompted this solo visit. "I owe you an apology," he said once we were seated. "Not just for this trip, but for a lot of things over the years, such as I prompted not making it easy for him. For taking you for granted, for not speaking up when Mom and Dad favored me, for acting like their preferential treatment was normal or deserved." He looked genuinely remorseful. "Seeing you stand up to all of us on the beach made me realize how strong you are, Amanda. Stronger than me. Honestly, I have always just gone along with whatever Mom and Dad wanted." His words were unexpected and touched me more deeply than I cared to admit. "Thank you for saying that, Justin. I want us to be closer," he said. "Real siblings, not just people who see each other at holidays." "I would like that too," I replied, surprised to find I meant it. That afternoon, I received a text from my parents saying they would be heading to the airport soon, but wanted to say goodbye. When I met them in the resort lobby, they seemed smaller, somehow more human, and less like the parental figures who had loomed so large in my mind. "We have been terrible parents to you," my mother said, tears in her eyes. "I do not know if you can forgive us, but we are truly sorry, Amanda. We got so used to you being the strong one, the independent one," my father added, "that we forgot you need family just as much as anyone." I hugged them both, feeling the beginning of something healing between us. "This is not fixed with one conversation," I told them. "But it is a start." After they left, I spent my final evening in Hawaii, walking along the beach at sunset. Eleanor joined me, her company now a comfortable presence. "So what happens when you go home?" she asked. "Will things be different with your family?" "I think so," I said. "At least they will be different because I am different now. I will not accept being treated as less than anymore." She nodded approvingly. The best families are those where everyone feels valued, heard, and included. Sometimes it takes a disruption like this to create a healthier dynamic. "I just wish it had not taken something so dramatic," I admitted. "Sometimes the most important lessons come wrapped in the most painful packages," she replied wisely. When I returned to Chicago, Jessica was waiting at the airport, eager to hear every detail of my Hawaiian confrontation. As we drove to my apartment, I told her everything from the beach showdown to the revelations about my parents' finances to the heartfelt conversations with my siblings. "So, basically, you went from being the excluded middle child to the VIP of Hawaii," she laughed. "That is what I call a plot twist." "It was never about the fancy resort or the special treatment," I explained. "It was about finally demanding the respect I deserve from my family." "And did you get it?" she asked. I thought about it for a moment. "I think I laid the groundwork for it. Real change will take time. But for the first time, I feel like they actually see me." In the weeks that followed, I noticed subtle but significant shifts in my family's behavior. My parents called more often, making genuine efforts to be involved in my life. Stephanie and I had weekly video chats, building a sisterly bond that had been missing for years. Even Justin reached out regularly, sending me funny texts or articles he thought I would enjoy. But the most profound change was within myself. I no longer felt like I needed to earn my place in the family or accept whatever scraps of attention came my way. I had found my voice and my worth, and I carried that knowledge with me like a precious souvenir from Hawaii. Family relationships are complicated, often laden with years of patterns and expectations that can be difficult to break. My confrontation on that Hawaiian beach was not a magical fix for all our problems, but it was a necessary disruption of a dynamic that had been hurting me for years. I learned that sometimes love means setting boundaries, speaking uncomfortable truths, and refusing to accept treatment that diminishes your worth. I learned that I could stand up for myself without burning bridges. That I could demand respect while still leaving room for reconciliation. Most importantly, I learned that family is not just who you are born to, but who sees you, values you, and makes space for you at the table. Sometimes that includes blood relations who learn and grow. And sometimes it includes the Eleanors and Daniels of the world who show up when you need them most.